Welcome to the webinar Lost in Translation Part 2, Helping Businesses and Education Partners to Create More Internships for Opportunities for Our Students. I am Kathy McDonald, your host today. I am Assistant Director for Network Partnerships for the Florida College Access Network. I am thrilled to welcome on our call today guest presenter Michael Dalby, President and CEO of the Naples Chamber of Commerce and a leader in Future Ready Collier, a local college access network that ensures students are college and career ready in Collier County. Michael Dalby was named President and CEO of the Greater Naples Chamber of Commerce in March of 2016. He also serves as President of the Leadership Collier Foundation and the Partnership for Collier's Future Economy. Michael leads an 11-person staff serving 1,400 members with business connections, public policy engagement, economic growth resources, and leadership development services. Prior to taking the Naples Chamber helm, Dalby was president of the Columbus, Ohio Chamber of Commerce, and prior to that led chambers in Indiana, Texas, and New Mexico. In all, Michael has 24 years of Chamber of Commerce experience. He's a native of Stephenville, Texas, a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, and has degrees from the United States Air Force Academy and the University of Nebraska. I'm also excited to welcome Lynn Chisholm, the Director for Internships and Career Readiness in Career Services, a division of the Student Affairs and Student Success at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Lynn is responsible for developing and managing career-focused experiential learning opportunities and career readiness programming to promote student career skill development and workplace success. Lynn has been in higher education for 15 years and also worked in workforce and organizational development for 12 years. She earned her master's degree at Boston University and her bachelor's degree at University of Central Florida. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please submit your questions in the question box that you should find in your dashboard on the right side of your screen if you're viewing from a desktop computer. We will allot time at the end of today's call for our guest presenters to answer questions, but you can submit questions at any time, and I encourage you to do so. This is really about all of us learning together and hopefully sharing ideas that can help each of us help more students succeed. Second, we are pleased to, we're hoping you'll share what you're learning on social media. You can find FCAN on Twitter at FL College Access, and we encourage you to use the hashtags FCAN and Internship. And finally, handouts are available also in the dashboard section of your screen. Michael has graciously agreed to share the Greater Naples Chamber of Commerce's Internship Toolkit, and I encourage you to check that out, that it includes frequently asked questions, sample job descriptions, and weekly check-in templates that managers and interns can use to ensure that an intern stays on track. We also have the individual internship learning plan that Lynn shared, as well as other resources. So I encourage you to take advantage of those and share those with your employer. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. All materials will be available within a week of this recording, including the slides. Oops. Now, for those of you who are new to the Florida College Access Network, our mission is to create and strengthen a statewide network that catalyzes and supports communities to improve college and career readiness, access, and completion for all students. Our vision is to see at least 60% of working age Floridians holding a high quality post-secondary degree or credential by the year 2025, and we accomplish our work in three primary ways. The first is we support the formation and growth of local college access networks, which are multi-sector strategic alliances collaborating to ensure more students succeed in preparing for tomorrow's jobs. The majority of jobs in the next decade will require education beyond high school, and LCANs help students by fostering partnerships between educational institutions, community organizations, business leaders, government, and philanthropy. We are proud that over 78% of our state is now supported by a local college access network. The second way we support our work is through FCAN's research and policy work. We produce student-centered research and policy analysis. We act as a clearinghouse for college and career readiness access and completion data, and we develop local, state, and national partnerships and policy alignment around degree attainment. Finally, we also support our schools and school districts through our College Ready Florida statewide initiatives. In the fall, we support College Application Week for all students interested in pursuing post-secondary education, the Florida FAFSA Challenge, and College Decision Day in the spring. We now have over 300 schools throughout the states participating in at least one of these statewide initiatives to help students get into college and afford the education they are interested in beyond high school to support their goals. On today's topic, I'm super excited that we have these two wonderful leaders here to help us understand better why and how to support more students in getting applied learning opportunities. To set the stage, most education and community members understand the importance of internships in helping students build the necessary work experience, but many schools and colleges are still struggling to find more employers willing to offer these career building opportunities. So to get us started, I'm going to launch a poll. Each of you have the opportunity to let us know what are the biggest challenges you see in producing or creating more internship opportunities in your community. Go ahead and vote. Okay, we'll give it a couple more seconds here. Okay, looks like it's slowing down, so let's go ahead and share that. So the leading contender here is we need more partnerships between employers and our education partners. So yeah, good thing you're on the call. We're gonna cover lots of good information for you today. Okay, so let's begin to frame the challenge that we're dealing with. First, a national internship and co-op study done by InternBridge found that 84% of college interns said their internship was their first working experience. Now, that does not mean 84% of college students an internship was their first work experience. It means those that participated in an internship, that was their first work experience. So it's clearly a critical first step for many students. They also found that the number one student motivation for seeking an internship is to gain hands-on experience in their field, ideally. While national trends do not always translate to Florida and will differ by college and university, it does give us an indication of how much students value this hands-on work experience. We also see that employers prefer candidates with work experience. 91% of employers in a recent NACE study prefer candidates to have some work experience, and 56% of employers prefer work experience gained through internships and co-ops for their new hires. So if students, employers, and education institutions all agree that internships are a good idea, why are we having a struggle getting more internships in our communities? Well, first, most employers are smaller than you might think. In a recent presentation at the Florida Chamber of Commerce's annual Earners to Learners statewide summit, Adrian Johnson, the Bureau Chief for Labor Market Statistics with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, shared that over 89% of private employers in Florida have fewer than 20 employees. 65% of all employers in Florida had only 1 to 4 employees. So when education partners are looking to their employers for internships, there may be a misperception that employer organizations are larger than they actually are. Internships, particularly paid ones, are an expense that need to have a positive return on investment to make it worth their while. particularly for small businesses that can't readily absorb the cost without a positive ROI. Now, I know many of our viewers today are also calling in from other states. While this is Florida data, I suspect you probably have a similar trend in your own state. And the other thing we've learned through another NACE study is that not all internships are created equal. One study they did in 2013 it was their student survey, found that paid internships delivered far better results in leading to graduates receiving job offers versus unpaid internships, which delivered on par with no internship experience at all. So this suggests we really do want to encourage those employers who are going to offer internships to do so and pay their intern, and yet that can create an additional burden for some of those smaller employers who may not have the same level of financial fortitude. Employer size may contribute to the number of internships available in communities, particularly ones that are paid. And still, many employers find that once they offer internships, they and the students have a positive experience and are often willing to do it again. So here to help us frame the opportunity in a way that's attractive to employers by using their language, let's welcome Michael Dalby. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Kathy, and thanks, Lynn, and thanks to everybody who's listening in on this webinar. From a chamber perspective, we kind of got into this as we met with our businesses and not-for-profit organizations. Like Kathy said, we have over 1,000 of those that we have some type of contact with, and found that they frequently kept talking about their challenges in finding talent, that they needed talent, that they weren't finding the people that they needed. And yet we knew that there were opportunities to connect with emerging talent, students, both at the college and high school level in our area. But we felt there was a need for some type of connection that needed to be made. So whether it's working with our colleges, Florida Gulf Coast University, Florida Southwestern State College, Hodges University, or our high school students through the efforts that we work with through our own Champions for Learning and Future Ready Collier program, we felt like the role that we needed to play was to help connect those two together. And our board saw that as well and authorized us to use some resources and hire first a part-time staff person and now a full-time staff person to help make those connections between the students and the businesses that we had all the information on and lots of contacts and felt like that was the role that we should play and needed to play. So maybe if we go to the next slide. So internships, to all of us who know about internships or think in that world, it's a pretty simple concept here, and this is just the dictionary definition. It's allowing that any period of time during which a beginner gets some experience in an occupation. So, that seems pretty simple and direct to us, but I will tell you that in terms of lost in translation, oftentimes our businesses, when they hear the word internship, it doesn't quite translate the way that we would think it to translate to. So maybe if you go to the next slide. So we've got businesses, not-for-profits, and education, and we'll talk a little bit about that not-for-profit side there too. So let's start off on the right-hand side on that matrix there, and we start with education using the word internship. Like I said, we typically know what that means. But I will tell you, if you skip all the way to the left-hand side and go to businesses, when a business hears intern, they oftentimes have different thoughts that go through their mind that aren't necessarily positive. The first one, DOL, is the Department of Labor. They'll start thinking about, well, what are all the Department of Labor requirements if I hire an intern? Are there pay and benefit requirements? Isn't there a certain number of hours they can work or not work? Do I have to do workman's comp? Then they'll also start thinking about staffing burdens. Just who's going to be the supervisor for this intern? What resources are they going to need? Am I going to have to buy another laptop? Am I going to have to work with their scheduling? How am I going to screen these candidates? And not to make it sound crazy, but sometimes they get pretty gun shy of all of that and just sort of like, no, I don't think I want to do that kind of thing. I will tell you on the not-for-profit side, as soon as they hear the word internship, they think free help. Now, not all not-for-profits, but often because of their lack of resources, they see that as an opportunity to get somebody in who's going to be able to provide free help. Yet they also have to follow some of those same rules about the Department of Labor, and sometimes are not really aware of that. So let's go to the next terminology. So the next terminology we sometimes use is workplace experience, and that way it's kind of broaden out between internship. It could be a part-time job, it could be a job shadowing, mentorship, whatever there. Again, on the business side of the equation, they're not really certain what that means either. Does it just mean a tour? Would you like me to come and talk with the students or the faculty? What does that workplace experience mean? And again, the not-for-profit is still sitting there saying, hey, free help, we love it. So go to the next one there. This one will change the terminology around to the business side, which oftentimes it really makes more sense to them if you say part-time job. Now this may be a part-time job that's fewer than 30 hours a week, maybe only like 10 hours. But to them, if you talk in terms of part-time job, then that fills in the blanks on all those other questions. Oh, I will treat them as an employee. They'll be a part-time employee, but I know what it means when they're an employee, and I know how all the law applies there. Sometimes on the education side, if we talk in terms of part-time jobs, we think, well, but then the business is going to be in control. We want to make sure that certain learning outcomes happen if the student is going to be working with that business. And I will tell you that it's okay to set those kind of expectations. And we talk a little bit about that in our toolkit as we provide that toolkit to businesses, internship toolkit, to help them to understand this is what they're signing up for and some things that are going to be expected from the business side. And most of them will understand that and recognize that, oh, those are things that I do want to have happen. Not-for-profits may say they don't have the money to be able to do a paid internship or a paid part-time job. We've had a great experience here in Collier County with our community foundation, which actually put up a sum of money that was made available to not-for-profits to help offset the costs of them having an intern in their offices. So you may think about that in your own communities, about working with your community foundations, because they saw that as a great way to not only have students and emerging talent experience not-for-profit work, but also to help them maybe stay in your community and see where they can play in a role in their own career development through a not-for-profit. So that's one of those there. We've actually had a grant come into play with our school district to help part-time job for high school students to help offset that as well for even a for-profit company. So there are opportunities out there if businesses or a not-for-profit says, I don't have the money to do this. You can kind of work through some ways to make that less of a burden on those businesses.
That's great, Michael. Thank you. And even within the education space, we have lots of different terminology for internships and other workplace experiences. Lynn, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Thanks, Kathy and Michael. I appreciate that introduction to what sometimes causes some barriers between folks in terms of accessing internship talent. There are a variety of ways that employers can offer experience if they're new to hosting a student. You don't have to go all in right up front if that's a little bit scary. You can start off with other student internship type experiences. And so just to kind of introduce some of those, the first three of these that we're going to talk about are a little bit lower risk and less of a time commitment on the part of the employer, but they still provide students with a valuable experience. So if the opportunity fits your organization, it could be an opportunity to explore the idea of hosting a student if that's new to you. So the first one we're going to take a quick look at is known as job shadowing or observing. This is usually a half day, maybe a full day. It's unpaid. Again, it's very short term. It's not a lasting commitment unless you and that student want to invite that student to come back for repeat visits. The student visits your workplace. They tour your facility. They probably want to conduct an informational interview to learn more about what a day in the life of your organization is like. It gives them a glimpse into what your business is about, what your mission is within the community, and what occupations you hire within your organization. On some campuses, like ours, this has been reworked as an intern for a day program to help emphasize that our students today need more than a passive introduction to a career. Since they've got smartphones in their hands, almost all the time. We like them to get a little bit more of an experience when they go out into the community so that they really can literally get a feel for what that workplace is like. So it may be called shadowing, or it may be called something like intern for a day, but it's a lower level commitment to a student if it's new for you. The next one that most people are familiar with, which can provide nonprofits with an on-request set of hands to help in a variety of ways, from helping at a fundraising event to helping in a particular role within the organization, is volunteering. This is also frequently short-term, and while it may be planned, the activities do not necessarily create a professional experience for the volunteer. Note that because of employment law requirements, for-profit employers can't use unpaid volunteers. The next category is service learning, and these opportunities offer a reciprocally beneficial collaboration between the organization and the educational institution. Typically, these are connected to a specific course with faculty involvement. There are typically projects or problems to solve that a course can use as a case study or a sort of lab-like project. These take some time to set up, but can offer a wide range of disciplines the opportunity to involve students with real-life community and workplace problem-solving projects. Okay, on the next side are internships again, and internships are going to provide students with a career-building hands-on experience and learning in an organization under the mentorship of a professional who can serve as a subject matter expert or mentor for the student's work, and to help them develop career readiness competencies that will serve them as they go on into the world of work. We like it when internships are both credit earning and paid, but the requirement to pay an intern is determined under the Department of Labor, Fair Labor Standards Act, and not by the educational institutions. Educational institutions just comply with the law, so we don't set the law, we just have to comply with it. The second category is cooperative education, and co-op is a multi-semester paid, credit earning, supervised work and learn experience. We find these more often in technical fields or within the business world where experience requires a longer commitment of time to properly grasp the business at hand. We're seeing them increase in areas like healthcare, which has now become much more complex with IT involvement in medical record provision and other sorts of technology kind of entering the patient experience. So we see it expanding rather than shrinking, but they are more intensive than a one-semester internship. Again, they're also typically pipeline experiences that lead to a full-time job offer. And the last category, which many listeners may be more familiar with, are the part-time jobs that are paid work experiences of fewer than 32.5 hours per week. Differences between part-time employment and internships are the fact that a part-time job may include menial tasks that may not be considered a beneficial part of an internship, but would be important to that organization, such as perhaps sweeping floors or straightening shelves. Not that an internship only has high-level experiences, because anybody who has worked has experienced the fact that we all share in building that organizational community, but how those things are translated to a part-time employee versus an intern may look a little bit different. And the percent of the professional opportunities for an intern may be greater than those provided to a part-time employee.
Thanks, Lynn. So on the great side, we're offering lots of different opportunities for employers. At the same time, you can see how all this can be a little confusing for employers. So Michael, how do we go about making it easier for an employer to embrace creating a student work experience?
You know, it's a great question, and I think a lot of this is education of the employer and outreach to them. Number one, up front, recognizing that most of our employers, the vast majority, are going to have fewer than 20 employees. So you're going to be working with businesses that don't really have a head of HR. They may have somebody that has 2 or 3 hats, finance, HR, administrative duties, things like that. But at the same time, some of these businesses can offer tremendous opportunities to students to really get a fullness of understanding about what goes on in that particular business, whether it's an engineering firm or a financial services business. even an insurance company, whatever it may be, to give them those kind of experiences that quite frankly, they might have in a smaller business that they wouldn't get in a larger business. I think it's being okay with the term part-time job. I think if that helps us communicate to the business and gets more attraction or gets more attention, then be okay with that. But recognize that you can also say, here's the things we would like you to be able to do with that, with the student, and give them these types of experiences. That mentoring with somebody who's a real expert in the field, having certain types of experiences on the job, that's okay to talk about with the business. I think the other part is helping the businesses understand that this is the benefit to them, helping them see that this is a way to tap into a talent pipeline, helping them to realize that, if you really like this intern or this person working for you, then you may be able to hire them. And that's a nice way to be able to try before you buy. Try out the student, try out the personnel and see how they do and the employee, and then say, we'd love to have you on full time. And we've seen a lot of that happen here in our own experiences with particularly not-for-profits, who oftentimes will experience through an intern and realize that, hey, that person not only is a great worker, but they provide great value back to our organization. Sometimes the employees as well, your staff, benefits from experience with the intern. Somebody who really hasn't had a supervisory experience before gets to have a little bit of supervision experience. There's people that kind of watch the intern around them and realize, I want to do a little better in my own job because got the intern here that's watching me what I do and how I do it. They can even help staff members think through why they do what they do, which is oftentimes a question that interns ask. So it's a lot of ways that can help the business. I think the other piece of this is realizing that to try to find those partners that can help you out. And to be honest, that's the role that we feel like chambers of commerce, which are natural connectors to businesses in the community, particularly smaller businesses, can help make those connections for you who are trying to place students in those work-based learning opportunities. We've found that as a chamber, it not only benefits our businesses, our members, or not-for-profit organizations, but it benefits us. I mean, we are seen as a helper, a connector, to help those businesses dealing with problem, which is quite frankly their number one issue, trying to find talented employees and to keep and retain those employees. So I think it's encourage you to work with your Chamber of Commerce to make those connections happen. And realize, too, that on the funding side, particularly for the not-for-profits, I will guarantee you there are monies out there that would help offset the cost of a not-for-profit having a student intern on staff, and even some at the maybe the national grant level that could help with even for-profit businesses, because they believe so strongly in the value of having those students have that work experience. So those are all things that can kind of help all this come together.
Those are great examples, Michael. Thanks for sharing that. You both have had some great experiences in terms of helping employers begin to see the potential for their organizations. Lynn, how do you go about what have you found to be successful in working with your employers, particularly for some of those smaller businesses?
That's a great question, Kathy. I think that we like to think of ourselves in the career and internship profession as consultants to the businesses, so that we can help them take a look at how an intern might fit into their strategic plan and future workforce growth goals, so that the intern is integrated into the way the organization does business and not as an add-on. I think, as Michael talked about and you also talked about the return on investment that's so important for small businesses, I think it's important for them to understand what that intern can help them do as an organization. Can they help them tackle problems they haven't had the time, energy, or workforce to address? Can they help them update processes and procedures? Can they help them improve the way their younger generation is being served by their company? What are the benefits to having that intern as part of their team? And to really think about how that intern fits into the organization. In this way, the intern's place in the organization is also clear to them. I think it helps for them to understand what their future career pathway might look like. Even nonprofits, I think, in our area, have done an excellent job of helping students understand that progression from volunteer to intern to hopefully potential employee in the future. So when they see that there could be a future with that organization, I think that really inspires their commitment to that organization, whether it's a for-profit or not-for-profit. We also think that students can help organizations as they plan for future workforce expansion, as mentioned, as they plan to update services and products for Gen Z and millennial customers. And interns of this age love to be a part of an organization's social responsibility goals. They want to know how they matter and how they make a difference. And so it helps if the employer thinks through these aspects in advance. And we love to be part of that conversation and help companies kind of bounce those ideas around if these are things they haven't really thought through yet. I also think employers might want to think about the intern's role and what that student can learn from their organization. And it's important to know what that opportunity is going to look like, no matter what background the student comes from. More often than not, employers tell me today that they don't really care about the major the student has. They care about having smart young people as part of their organization and students who are interested in committing to what their business is about. So think about that. If it doesn't have to be a specific major match, that broadens the horizon for your recruitment. Recruit for smarts and disposition or personality or attitude, and then train for the skills that you need as part of your organization or job. It can also be helpful for a student to be able to rotate through several areas. So that may mean that you don't have to have, a ton of work in one particular area if you think that intern can benefit from moving through different areas within your organization to get a more well-rounded experience. And in many communities, there are efforts to attract young professionals. As Michael mentioned, your chamber is a great resource. Frequently, they have an education committee of some kind or other efforts in place to help attract and retain young professionals. Tap into those resources as well, and they can often assist you in making connections with your educational partners in your community.
Thanks, Lynn. That's great. I think so many times when we think of employers, we tend to think of the business community only. Michael, can you share a little bit about how you also engage? You mentioned nonprofits earlier, nonprofits and local government in considering internships and other forms of workplace learning for our students.
Yeah, so one of the things that of our own membership, over 100 different organizations, not-for-profit organizations, are part of our membership. Not unusual for a chamber to have a pretty big percentage of their membership being not-for-profit. So we already had those relationships with them, and we knew that they were struggling with the same talent challenges that businesses were. And we realized that some of the things that Kathy mentioned about, Lynn mentioned about how the students love to have that kind of social responsibility piece built into their experience. Not-for-profits, that's a perfect match. But again, not-for-profits, sometimes it's the idea of the same challenges that a business would be thinking through of how am I going to manage this person, how am I going to put all this together, and how am I going to pay? Because we feel like that oftentimes that pay can make a difference with the student's experience. But we found ways to help those not-for-profits and some of them and our government entities, and we've had some of our best examples have come out of those experiences where students had been able to have a placement with a not-for-profit, be it a local YMCA or our fire district. Actually, our fire department, fire district here in our area, hired a student intern and had a great experience with them, gave them lots of different types of experiences. Now, kind of talking what Lynn was saying about the major, the student was planned on going into engineering, but had a really great computer background and understood how to do make some marketing pieces and put some documents together and provided some great support to the fire district, was able for them to do some community outreach work that they had just never been able to get around to. Same thing with the YMCA. I mean, all these organizations, once they get an intern in their office, they realize, wow, this is great. This is exactly what we needed. And for the bang for the buck, you really can't beat it. And I think too, just not to kind of beat that same issue again, but it's the idea that I believe there's grant monies out there that can be made available to help encourage not-for-profits to have that intern on, realizing that the intern is going to be able to to have an experience and really get to know the not-for-profit arena, and with that particular not-for-profit, whatever their cause is, to be able to understand that cause and make that a part of their own life. So there's a lot of positives there, but I think we shouldn't write off not-for-profits. They're some of the largest organizations in Collier County are not-for-profits, and they're very well developed, very well staffed, very professional, and can give incredibly great experiences to interns. So don't forget not-for-profits. Don't forget local governments. We had a local government representative the other day say that 1/3 of their current staff was eligible for retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. So they have become very motivated to bring in interns and others to give them a feel for what it means to work at a city, county, governmental level. It's a big issue for them, and so this is an opportunity to make those internship connections.
That's a great example, Michael, and I don't think they're the only ones who are concerned about their talent pipeline, knowing that, a significant portion of their employees will be retiring over the next 10 years. So once we have employers that are interested in getting started, how do we all help our employers and students and our education institutions manage expectations? So Michael, if I can start with you, how do you help employers manage expectations, and then even help the education institution, have some sensitivity around what the businesses are and or employers are juggling?
Sure, it's another one of those areas where we hopefully that we're a bridge, we're a connector between both sides of that equation, to be able to say for our businesses, here's what you need to expect, and that toolkit that we developed helps with that. It helps them to think through, okay, here's some of the key things you need to do about how to prepare for the intern. Here's what you need to do up front to make the experience start off well. Here's what you need to do to onboard them. Some businesses haven't onboarded an employee in a while, and so it's something they need to think through. The toolkit also talks about, during their internship, what do they need to be doing, and how do you set up times for them to check in? How do you give them opportunities to meet with the boss? Make sure that they get that chance to sit down and talk about the philosophy, about the business or the organization. And then when the internship is completed, how are you going to handle it from there? We strongly encourage exit interviews, so to find out not only how did the intern feel about it, but how did our staff feel about the experience. I think all those things that we've included in the toolkit can help the business to just put some things in their mind. We don't want to overwhelm them. we joke a lot of times they're like approaching a skittish animal. You don't want to overwhelm them because they'll easily turn off. It's too easy for those businesses to just say no, forget it. I don't want to do it, even though it would be in their best interest. But we do want to set the expectations that hey, you need to prepare and you need to make certain elements of this happen for it to be really useful for the student and be really useful for your business. Realizing that the student's going to go out and tell the world the experience they had with your business or your not-for-profit or your governmental organization. So I think it's preparing the businesses, and we try to do that through our toolkit. I think as we work with colleges, universities, high schools, students, and leaders there, we try to explain things like what we've talked about, that just because a student says, I want to be in engineering, an experience may not necessarily seem like it matches up well, but it may be a great match. So we had one time an engineering student that ended up getting placed with a large hotel property in our area, not thinking that they would have anything to do with engineering, but they did. They have a very large component of their overall resort operations that deals with engineering issues, everything from electrical to water and sewer lines to all the buildings and those components. So sometimes you might not think that a hotel would match up with an engineering student, but it actually can give them a very broad base of experiences. Similarly, using that same kind of experience, we had a student who said, I want to be in hospitality, but got into working in the hospitality area of the hotel, and they rotated them through various different experiences. And when they got to work with the cleaning staff, when they had to work with them, they realized that, wow, there was a lot of staff and a lot of different interactions and things that were going on there. And then they moved from there into HR and said, I really like this HR component. I never thought that was really what I would like to do. But just because they initially said hospitality and maybe were thinking about travel and things like that, they recognized that their true passion was in HR and working with the staff. So I think it's kind of helping us all to realize that just because you may not see a certain type of business in that field, don't discount that. Realize that a lot of businesses can give a lot of different types of experiences to an intern, and sometimes, again, those small businesses can give you an incredible feel for the very thing that many students want to become, is their own boss. They want to become entrepreneurs. And so when you're in a marketing firm and you're getting to rotate through a lot of different areas of marketing, not just the creativity part, but the finance part, the sales part, the overall administration part, those are things that help them to realize that, hey, these are all pieces of the business and all of what comes into play to make it happen.
That's a great example, and it just goes to show how, students are still in that exploration process, even when they have a fairly defined major. And so giving them the opportunity, whether it's through a small business or through a rotation, to explore a number of different areas really helps to kind of hone where in an organization they really tend to have an interest or shine to. So thanks for those examples. A related question, Lynn, from Liz, one of our listeners, she shared, if we are using the language of part-time job for employers, how do we help students understand the differences between part-time jobs and internships? We often have students trying to make part-time jobs into internships, but if there isn't the professional industry learning available to them, we usually won't approve those opportunities for internship credit.
Yeah, I would agree with that comment. I think that it's important to maintain the distinction between those two roles. And most of us have had a part-time job at one time in our life or not. Many of us have also had internships. So I think as we compare and contrast, we know that within an internship, that student is working under a subject matter expert who can guide and mentor their professional development within that field. Whereas the part-time job may not have that same ability on staff at the organization to guide that professional learning. I'll give you a quick example. We get a lot of organizations who want a social media intern. And when I talk to them about who the student mentor will be, they say, well, we don't have one. The student will be our social media expert. So when that conversation comes up, I usually suggest that they may wish to hire that student as a part-time employee to provide the social media services for that organization, because it's not going to provide the student with industry standards, with higher level skill development, and with an industry subject matter expert who can really help that student grow their skills within the mass communication field. So it may just be based on what that organization support system looks like for the student and how they can best equip the student within their organization to learn and contribute. But I think you're right to still kind of clarify the distinction between the two. And it's important for the student as well, because the expectations tend to be a little bit different between a job and an internship as well, with the emphasis on the learning placed on the role of an intern, and that looks a little different from a part-time employee. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think that was good clarity, because a lot of part-time jobs could, as long as they're structured right and that employer is willing to make that adaptation. Somebody might be working in a part-time position, but then there is this actual opportunity to get more of direct workplace experience around their job. But I think the word I heard from you or the direction was really being intentional about it. So with that, Michael, can you help us understand how to make it easier for our employers to consider this in order to expand more opportunities for students?
One of the efforts that we've undertaken is to try to position the chamber as a hub for internship opportunities, both for the not to take the place of what's happening at the colleges or universities or even our high school, but to supplement it and make it maybe a little bit easier even for our businesses to come to a one-stop location and say, I want to post this position and I want to post it to go to multiple different areas, and here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I'd like to try to set up. It gives us an opportunity to kind of vet those offerings. It's kind of like what Lynn mentioned. If they're just looking for like that social media person who's going to do it all by themselves, then no, that really doesn't qualify and won't qualify. And so we'll coach them to adjust that into a different way. And then also for our learning institutions and our students, we want them to realize here's the type of jobs that are out there, but don't immediately discount one job because you might not see how that could apply with your area of study or what you're trying to go into. So we have worked at an example that's TDN Miami. I think it's Talent Development Network Miami. They have a great website that we've been kind of modeling off of and working with some guys with Think Intern, which is THINC, I believe. Their website capabilities, we're kind of blending some things together to come up with and create that hub that's both for mentorships and internships, to be able just to connect students to business professionals, to be able to give them those experiences. They're going to help them to see the opportunities both here in our community and to try out a career and really get a feel for, is this something I really want to do? And I think it's the way to leverage a Chamber of Commerce. I just always felt like there needed to be that connector, that too often there was just no really good connecting piece between students' education side, which knew a lot about what the goals of the internship and what the students were trying to accomplish, but just not a real good connection with the business side, and oftentimes it would get lost in translation. But we've been able to kind of position the Chamber as a helper on both sides of that equation to make that handshake happen and do it in a manner that's beneficial to both parties.
Michael, can you repeat the name of the website in Miami? I have some audience members that are looking to capture that.
Yeah, TDN, so Tango Delta November there, if you're into that kind of thing. So TDN Miami. So
wonderful.
So TDN Miami, and it's they did a great job, and we kind of learned lessons from them. And we work not only with colleges and universities, but also with high school students. So we had to adjust a little bit there, but it was a great kind of a example for us to look at and model after, and then try to go forward from there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lynn, I know you all at USF, not necessarily every college and university, but at USF, you do have a dedicated functional area to support internships. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And I've worked on different size campuses as well. I think most higher ed institutions have professionals in the career area, if not specifically for internships, and those people would love to work with employers to help figure out how to best meet the needs that the employer may have in terms of intern talent. We post positions through a system called Handshake, and we do that not to make it an impersonal way to do business, but because it's more efficient and it helps the employer, whether it's a for-profit or not-for-profit, to best capture who they are as an organization and to best recruit for the type of student talent they're looking for, and to make sure that that's a good organizational fit as well as a good experiential fit, and kind of taps back into what we talked about earlier in terms of managing expectations. Doing it right from the recruitment point is a really critical part of getting it right the whole way through. And we like being able to help employers to really build that process so that it helps support a positive outcome for both the employer and the student. Michael mentioned the importance of onboarding, and I would also concur that that's super important with our young folks today who may have flexible attitudes about what time to show up and what to wear and what's okay to say or do in the workplace, because this is all kind of new for them, and the things that they've been exposed to may not necessarily have provided them with the best examples of workplace conduct. So I think without making it a punitive conversation along the way, it may be important for employers, especially the small ones, to really take time on a regular basis to talk through what it's like to be a member of their organization, what your culture is about, what your customers expect, what kind of communication skills you need to see that student display. And I think that's why the learning piece is such an important part of the internship experience, because it gets them thinking about these things that they've probably never really had to think about before. We are also sharing on the with the webinar material, the internship learning plan, and we also like using this to frame the internship because it helps to identify what the student goals are as they enter the internship, and then the employer gets to talk about how they can best support that student in achieving those goals and or whether or not they're realistic. And to kind of be clear about things like deadlines and about training outcomes and the various things that are important to making the business successful and assuring that the intern is a productive part of that business. So hopefully I haven't gone too far afield on that topic, but we really do look at that relationship between the employer and the higher ed institution in support of intern success as being one that lasts throughout that internship and doesn't just help get the student in the door, but provides resources and support and assistance and guidance all along the way for the employer as they may need it.
Thanks, Lynn. Just following up on that TDN that Michael mentioned earlier, Grace from our audience shared that stands for Talent Development Network, and I believe that's affiliated with the Beacon Council down there. So more clarification there. Michael, one of the questions from our audience, Sue shared, which I believe you can answer, what are the adjustments needed for high school students? And I know you have experience working with your employer base to not only create internships for college students, but also high school students as well. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that is one of the areas where we're kind of developing and evolving into. I think maybe one of the first things that happens is people think, well, they're younger than 18. How are you going to do any kind of a placement? We find there's plenty of opportunities out there still, that businesses that are willing to take that high school student and work with them. High school students have tremendous skill sets. I mean, I don't think we've had a single business that's been disappointed by the level of skill set that the high school students were shown or exhibited. I think it's the concepts of trying to make sure that we ask questions about transportation. You know, this is one that you have to make sure that they understand the need for transportation, and that they have to make sure that that's all arranged and taken care of. We do some checking with the business environment to make sure that it's going to match up with what the high school student. It might take an extra step there to ensure that it's not just two people working out of somebody's home. We got to make sure that it's a good office setting, that it's going to provide a good experience for the student. We work with the businesses that we know well, that we have had long time experiences here in the area, and that have been a good relationship with the chamber and with the community, so that they have a lot of vested interest to make sure that that's a good experience for the student. We've been fortunate in working with the NAF Academy, so those National Academy Foundation, the NAF students who have already kind of had a business background, a little bit of orientation as to what is going to be expected of them in various business settings. They come with an already preloaded set of experiences and training, and those have been great connections through our school district that has numerous NAF Academy students, and trying to work to make those placements, because that's a part of their requirement is for the NAF program is for them to have a work-based learning experience, and to be able to reach out to lots of different businesses. We don't have a large, we're not a major metropolitan area, but we've gotten creative and realized there's a lot of different businesses that can provide the certain types of experiences that a student that's in, whether it's in a business and finance, healthcare, hospitality, engineering, NAF Academy, that they're able to get those kind of experiences. So I think as long as you're working with the juniors, seniors, and you're able to go through those different requirements that they may, the business needs to make sure that they explain what they expect from that student, and it has to be massaged a little bit more. That's why we play that intermediary position there to make sure that we get it right for both parties. But I think you can still have great experiences for those high school students as well.
Great. We were going to touch on this question, but I think we essentially covered that with our discussion. So if you want to wrap us up here before we open up for Q&A.
Well, again, thanks to everybody who's taken the time to listen to this. I think the key here is we know that there are so many students who need to have these kind of experiences and who are going to benefit greatly from these experiences, but we just have so few employers right now who are catching the vision and understanding it. And all I'm trying to do is communicate that if you do a little outreach with the businesses, if you use a little bit of a different terminology with them and give them a template or give them some ready-made handouts, explanations of this is what you can do to help make this happen, and do a little bit of hand-holding with them. You can greatly expand the number of businesses that are willing to take an intern and that are going to have a great experience with an intern. I'll tell you that once a business has a great experience with an intern, you've pretty much got them. They realize how valuable that is, and they realize what the benefit is both to their own business, but to their staff members, and that opportunity to get first dibs on some upcoming talent. So I think you just need to try to greatly expand the number of businesses and use your chambers of commerce, use other organizations. Economic development organizations in your communities can also be players in this too, that are all trying to help these businesses to find talent. It's the number one issue in our economy today, and those businesses know that. And if you can just tell them that you're here to help, I think they can turn on the opportunity for the business or the not-for-profit or the governmental organization to say, yes, we would like to work with you to help make that internship pipeline happen.
Well, and the resources you've shared in our handouts within the dashboard are extremely helpful for our listeners where they don't have to start from scratch. There's some ready-made tools and resources. I love how you have even just the weekly check-in template between the manager and the intern, just some really great tools like that help somebody get up that learning curve quicker. This next question from our audience is Michelle, and this question's for Lynn. We often struggle with getting students interested in applying for oftentimes really good internship opportunities. Please share a few ideas to get students interested in ultimately applying.
Well, that's that's an interesting predicament, but I think you're hitting on a point that we also see in our community, which is unlike maybe the situation that Michael is describing, we tend to have many internships and not as many interns applying for them. So you're right. Sometimes they don't see the benefit of it. Sometimes they don't see how it's going to take them down the next step in their career pathway. And I'm not sure, I think it's perhaps something that looks a little bit different depending on your community. I think here in the Tampa Bay area, we have so many opportunities that our students may be overwhelmed. Whereas in a smaller community, the opportunities tend to not be as plentiful. So students may see that they really need to take advantage of those internships because they don't have as many choices. On our campus, we try to connect with our students to help them see their role in planning out their career progression and to getting them connected in that whole process of becoming career ready. We help them see the connection between what they're learning in the classroom and any experience they may be gaining, whether it's campus involvement or part-time jobs or hopefully an internship, and how those things take them closer and closer to their career goals. So I might want to be sure that the students know where they're headed and know what sorts of things they want to do post-graduation. Sometimes that can be true for high school students as well as college students. And I know, having also worked within Polk County, Florida, where there's an academy system within the high schools, it's an important part of that conversation with their students as well, that those students are at least exploring a particular career path, even if it's not the one that they end up on, but that they think intentionally about the goals they're setting and how they're building experience along the way. Good luck with your problem there, Michelle. That sounds like a tough one that really just maybe, again, kind of going back to the lost in translation terminology, helping them understand how their experience can help them meet their ultimate goals.
Thanks, Lynn. As we are wrapping up here, I just want to share some key takeaways. Number one, use user-friendly language when discussing internship opportunities. Stress the benefits to their organization. Don't forget about nonprofits and local government as internship opportunities as well. Make it easy for employers to post opportunities and help by providing them resources to get up that learning curve so that it feels less daunting. My thanks to Michael and Lynn for sharing their expertise today. I really appreciate all the great interaction on the question dashboard. And I think together we can create more opportunities for students to succeed. Next up, don't forget, we have a webinar in a couple of weeks, No Dollar Left Behind, organizing a community-based approach to FAFSA completion. I hope you'll join us. And if you'd like to learn more about that webinar, our policy briefs, our dashboards, we just released one this week on FAFSA completion. Go to floridacollegeaccess.org/subscribe. Thank you all for joining us.